So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome for Data+Women event in Zurich. Today we will have like awesome speakers, like always, but we have like some slide to explain you what is Data+Women that I want to show you. So that is the program, a very short introduction, all speakers, and then some Q&A in between. So our purpose, Data+Women is a global initiative to promote women working with our own data, and our main goal is to give visibility to this women. Obviously, everyone is welcome. I like to quote Emily, who is on the call today. It's Data plus women, not minus men. So independently of any gender, you can come and we will be happy to have you. So the team, we had one additional member today, G1. She will introduce herself. I have the pleasure, like always, to be with Olivia. So yes, some word about me. I'm looking for a job, so if you want to hire me, please connect in LinkedIn. I will be happy to have a kind discussion with you. My passion in life are data visualization, tableau, and lastly, I was working for a center of enablement in Zurich. I will let Olivia, I will introduce everyone today. So Olivia is a successful data scientist at Meta. She loves surfing, skiing, books, and coffee. I don't know if it's on the correct order. And she's also in Zurich. And you should connect with her in LinkedIn. And we have Jiwon. She's a graduate student at Bentley University. Her passion in life are art, writing, data analyst, and she has cute photo of dogs. So Jiwon, later we want to know the name of this beautiful doggy that you are presenting. And she's joining from Boston. And I think that G1 here, you should talk about what is the impact of the future. If you want like to explain it.
Thank you, Annabelle. Hi, everyone. My name is Jiwon, and you must be wondering like why I'm here. Because I wouldn't be here if it weren't for events like this that women like you today. So when I was younger, I was attending events just like today that made me believe in myself, even though I constantly felt like I wasn't good enough. So Impact the Future is the theme for this year's International Women's Month at Google Women Tech Makers program that unites thousands of women across the globe. I reached out because I'm a huge fan of the Tableau user group sessions and wanted to hear how women in the data community are impacting the future. So I really want to thank Annabelle and Olivia for being so welcoming and allowing me to assist in organizing today's event and mentoring me. But I hope you are just as excited as I am in welcoming our amazing speakers today and hearing their stories. So before we start, we would love to remind you that all of the resources will be available after the session. If you like today's session, make sure to follow and subscribe for upcoming events. With that said, let's welcome our speakers today. So Emily is an analytics and accessibility consultant who is currently enrolled in the Masters of Science Data Analytics program. Today, she will help us answer the questions, what makes a dashboard accessible and how do people actually create them? Can you combine data with sketchnoting? Ask Sophia. She has been using data to tell visual stories, start conversations, and help people engage with their data. She specializes in data sorting methods that make data more human and relatable, like creating live data drawings. So please welcome our lovely speakers as they share how they impact the future with their passion. Thank you.
Emily, the stage is yours.
All right, well, thank you so much. I apologize for the background. I had a scheduling snafu, so I am fortunate enough to talk to you about deconstructing accessible dashboards right before I board. All right, So, you heard the introduction, which was fantastic. I really appreciate it. What you may not also know about me is that I have chronic. And in fact, as I was putting this slide deck together, I currently have trigger finger, which is basically where the tendon can't work correctly in my fingers, and it's kind of reached down to my palm. So I'm going to have minor surgery to fix it. And I can take a leave to help reduce some of the inflammation, but it's beginning to get painful to type. So the reason why I talked to you about that or wanted to share that is because when we think about accessibility and when we think about chronic illnesses or disabilities, I think we tend sometimes to think about sight and permanence. And in fact, disabilities can take many forms. It's beyond sight and it can be temporary, which is my finger. It can be situational. So if I were holding a baby and then I gave it back, I couldn't use my left arm for that situation, for that moment. And then it could be permanent where I don't have either. And so to me, that was an aha moment of, whoa, this world is pretty big, bigger than what I thought. And so that's why I am so passionate about sharing what I've learned about accessibility. So today we're going to cover just an overview of compliance and conformance. What does it mean to need an accessible design? I'm going to walk through some accessible examples and talk to you about like what makes them accessible, and then just cover off a little bit of how they might do that in a tool such as Tableau. I'll quickly run through some practical tips, and I have resources for you as well. Now, depending on the time, we might be able to fit in a couple of questions, and I really do apologize for kind of like presenting and running. But I will answer any questions over LinkedIn. You'll have my connect information at the end of it. All right, so with that, we can advance it. All right, so I used to be a bank examiner. So this compliance and conformance means something to me. Compliance is, there is a law, a regulation, an act. It is something where if you have a violation, there are they can be severe consequences of that. Conformance is like adhering to guidelines. And so there are several different regulations in the US. Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act is really big. There's one for the EU, Canada, UK, and I think another country is getting ready to either update or implement another accessibility act. Then there's conformance, which is the WCAG guidelines. That's the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Now, back in 2017, I think the government realized in the US that there was a difference between Section 508 and what WCAG was saying. And so they really needed to close the gap in order to help people become compliant. And so what they've done is the Section 508 now aligns with the WCAG guidelines at a level 2 compliance. So there's 3 levels. There's A, AA, and AAA. A is the minimum. AA is like it's reasonably doable that you should be able to do this if you're putting content on the web. And 3, that would be amazing if you could for that. All right, let's go to the next slide. So here's the TLDR, the too long didn't read of WCAG. There's what we call the core principles. Core is perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. So on the next slide, you'll see I have it kind of written out from the big picture. So the P, perceivable, it should be perceivable by multiple actions. Like alt text is a great example of this. I can perceive it through visual, and I can perceive it through sound. The O is really around, can users operate it or navigate through different means. Keyboard and mouse is a great example. You, is it understandable? And this is where I like to use the grandma test or the peer test of, can somebody else understand what your visualization is trying to convey? And then R is robust, meaning can it be accessed with different assistive technology? So to me, if you don't have the O, like if you can't check off that you have the O, it's going to be hard, I think, to check off that you have the R. So that's what core means overall. And then WCAG has very detailed guidelines that align with that, with those principles. All right, so let's go to the next slide. So what does it mean to need accessible design? Well, it can mean like thinking about and hopefully knowing your audience. Being super user focused is how I think about it. It means not being able to do something that other people can do and acknowledging that when you're designing. It means connecting it means considering the different types of considerations. Well, that's kind of wonky. It's about sight. It's about sound, dexterity, and cognition. So again, more than just sight, even though that's the kind of popular one that gets talked about a lot. And it means thinking about core before you publish. And the next slide. So you'll have these light pink slides that are meant to be like the takeaway, like a big takeaway. So think about core before you publish. All right, next slide. So here are some accessible examples. We have the Tokyo 2020 US Paralympic Collegiate Watch List. So with this one, it is accessible because it explains, the text explains what's being conveyed. There's instructions on how to use the visualization, and it has alternating colored rows to more easily identify the data that you want. By the way, when you get this deck, I have linked the images to their Tableau public, to the viz on Tableau public. So you will be able to explore this yourself. So how did they do that? Really, it's with text. It's with the formatting that's already built into Tableau. There was no hacky type of ways that they built this dashboard. All right, let's go to the next one. So here's another example. There's profit analysis for marketing. So this one is very clean. It's not overwhelming. Color deficiency friendly. And there's a band, a big aggregate number to draw attention to what's important. Again, when you think about the last one compared to this one, they look completely different. And this is where your audience comes into play. And so knowing them and knowing what they need will help you build the accessible visualization for your audience. And all our audiences are different. All right, so the next one, this is actually one that I worked on with the Salesforce and Team USA 2022 Winter Olympians. This was a great learning experience, but a great way to see how companies, organizations build accessible dashboards. What I want to point out here, there's labeled bar charts. There's high contrast between the labels and the bars. There's a decorative icon. So the sport icons, those are decorative because while they do have some functionality, the label is above the icon so that you can tell the screen reader could read what is being displayed. And there are instructions to work or to engage with each section of the dashboard. And there's sufficient contrast in the blues. And again, this was all done with pretty basic functionality in Tableau. Okay, our next one is a disability data hub. This one I think is from 2019, and that's important because, and I'll talk about why in a minute. So in this visualization, it's a landing page. There's an explanation of the landing page. There's a how-to guide for using the landing page and the drill downs, so the subsidiary pages. There's an image link for keyboard navigation in Tableau. So that top right, to me, it looks like a speech bubble, but that actually links to how to use keyboard navigation in Tableau, which I thought was really cool. There's an information icon for help, and there are buttons to help users learn how to turn on screen readers for their type of computer. So they've got instructions for Mac and for Windows. Now, I say that this is 2019 because depending on the technology advancement and Tableau's releases, the button might not have been a feature. I don't think it was a feature in 2019. So what looked like a button actually was probably text or an object or an image that's linked. So if you can use buttons, you should use buttons because the screen reader recognizes that element as a button instead of an image. So the next one. This is one from Colin Smith, who collaborated with the Workout Wednesday folks to recreate, the challenge was to recreate this dashboard for Superstore, excuse me. The reason why this is accessible is because it explains what's being conveyed. It's color deficiency friendly. It uses a color deficiency friendly palette, excuse me. There are instructions for filtering, and it provides instructions overall. And what's really awesome about it is that it includes a data-driven status message of what's being displayed. And so that helps from a cognitive perspective, helps people understand what is being displayed. Because I don't know about you, but I was one time in a class on interest rate risk, and they showed a graph, and they were like, okay, what does it mean? And I felt like the dumbest person in the world because I was like, I don't know. I mean, it just looks like that. And this is before I was really into database. And it felt really awful to feel like the dumb one. So the same thing can apply to in the meeting or at work. By providing that status message, it helps people go, oh, okay, now I get it. Now I see what's being conveyed. And to do all of this, like the data-driven status message, it's using the data elements that you've put into the dashboard. It's just text and using the features that are already inside. So the next one is Fix My Street Glasgow Edition. I like this one because it explains what's being conveyed. There's high contrast between the blue and the white in the various, with the blue background and the white text, and the blue bars and the white background. It provides instructions on how to use it. But I do want to note, the map is a bit of an issue because overlapping data points, you should really avoid overlapping if possible. And so if you do have to overlap, try to put like a 1 pixel border. So that way the data elements or the data items are distinguishable, because that helps people understand what's being displayed. And overall, though, I thought that this was easily understood. So, depending on who the audience is for this one, I would say if I were the audience, I could understand what is being conveyed here. And I thought it was really nice. It had white space, which is not overwhelming, and it was easy to read. So if we go to the next slide. Oh, and by the way, for the Workout Wednesday from Colin Smith, in the title, I have linked to the search on Tableau Public, so you can see other people's submissions, or if they have it on their Tableau Public. But really, when it comes to it, the only 100% accessible design is the one you build for you, because you know yourself the best, and you know what you can read and what you can't read. So So if you're thinking, well, shoot, how am I going to build an accessible design for others if it's not 100%? There are design considerations, and so you have to think through, know your audience, and know what's important for them. And I would say too that your dashboard can be accessible today, and then a month, a year, 2 years from now, it cannot be accessible because your audience has changed. So I talk about workflow, and if you've ever heard me speak, I say the fortune's in the follow-up. Not only is it a great product owner saying, but it's great for understanding your audience and understanding their needs because they may change. All right, so the next slide. So here are some practical tips. I really like this slide. And by the way, I know that this is wordy. I really meant this as a reference. So that's why it's got so many words on it. So how to ask if somebody needs an accessible design. You can start off with saying, what would make it easy for you to consume data? Do you have a preference on the type of chart? If they're like, oh, I just like very simple charts, pie charts, line charts, bar charts. I think waterfall charts are crazy, like Sankey's, or the ones that look like spaghetti. I can't understand those. It's like my brain just like spaces out. When you ask the questions on this slide, in a way that it's more open-ended, getting to know the person or the group, you don't have to ask them, do you have an accessible need for keyboard? Because that can feel really intrusive. But by making it a little more human and plain language and open-ended, then you're having a conversation. And so you're still getting the information you need, but you don't feel like you're intruding on their potentially private matter, their health, private health. So I'll just touch on a couple of these as well, because I don't need to read the whole thing. A screen reader can do that, or you can read it later. Like how do you like to navigate through the dashboard? Are you a keyboard person or a mouse? I like to actually use the keyboard, even though I can use the mouse as well. Like I'll do a combo. So this also really gets to your user's habit. This is why I always think about accessibility as super user-centered design. And then, do you have any preferences for interacting with a dashboard? If they say no and that they want to rely on your expertise, which is a common occurrence, this is where the feedback comes into play. You can let them know, hey, I'm into whip something up for you, and I'm going to ask you your feedback and ask you to navigate through it. And then please let me know if if I'm on the right track, if there's something else that will help you be successful in navigating it and really getting to the information you're looking for. Okay, so the next slide, we start going into some practical tips by consideration. So for site, it's really around, to me, contrast is queen. Using the appropriate font size. So 12-point font for body, 10-point font for labels, axes, the smaller kind of text, and 18-point font for that larger text. That could be your title or dashboard. And so this is where having a lot of white space or blank space on your dashboard is going to be helpful because it gives people the space to synthesize what's being communicated. And the other thing that's helpful, which I've had to learn, or kind of unlearn, is that double encoding is okay, because it's if you have it in color, but then you have an arrow that's down, people understand that this is something that is negative. And the other thing, one of the things I had to unlearn was saving space. And so instead of having, I don't know if any of you heard this, but instead of having a legend, put your legend in the text, in the title or subtitle, like um, the furniture category is in blue and it has the word blue, and so on and so forth for each of the items being colored in the visualization. Here's the problem. Well, actually, if it just had furniture, the word furniture, and that was, and technology in orange, screen readers can't read color. So you're not really helping your user out if they're using screen reader. Right, let's go to the next slide. Dexterity. This has been my issue this week, actually. Make it accessible for keyboard navigation. And again, by knowing your users and knowing that if they need a switch or a sip and pull, you'll be able to either work with the IT folks in order to make, get the understand the technology if you're using sip and puff and switch, because that isn't necessarily very common in workplaces. But if it's keyboard, you know that you need to design it and check for it so that your user can successfully navigate through. And reduce the amount of clicks needed to get to the insight. This is a best practice, but it is also helpful. If you can help me, for example, so that I don't have to keep tabbing and moving my finger or mousing through and moving my finger, it's really going to help me. All right, so the next one, comprehension. This is where using highlight colors are really helpful. Using bands, the big aggregate numbers to draw attention, the space, I talked about that. Focus on one story, one question, and keep it simple because it's easy to understand. You're going to help your audience way than if you try to throw everything in there and make it very elegant. Sometimes simple is what. All right, the next slide. So here are some common challenges and ways to solve them. This is not all inclusive, but it just highlights a few considerations and ways that you could solve it. So using a font, please don't use a decorative font. Use selective readable font. Perdana is a great one. That's my favorite one because of spacing. Help your users if there's something important, perhaps an annotation will be helpful understanding. If they have low vision, high contrast and font choice. And if there is animation, make sure that you don't have it more than 3 seconds, I'm sorry, 3 flashes in 1 second. I think Tableau's animations are by default, they are, they're not more than 3. For the next slide, this is where I want you to work it into your workflow. And I'm actually on contract right now where I'm helping them make their report more accessible. So even though I had this workflow before, I'm putting it into practice, really into practice where stakes are kind of high. And so what I want you to do is prototype it. Check in with your users, stakeholders to see if it's, check it against the accessible checklist or heuristics like intelligibility. You make the necessary changes, then you check it again for those changes. You can publish and then make sure the published version is accessible. So really with that checklist, check it also with and I'll revise this because I meant to put your stakeholders as well. But you really want to make sure that to the extent possible, it's going to comply or conform. In the next slide. But here's the bottom line for me. Just try your best. I know that some people are like, you've got to have everybody with a disability in your focus group. And I mean, if you can get that, that's amazing. And I would encourage that. But sometimes we don't have that luxury because either maybe there's not psychological safety to raise your hand and say, yeah, I do have a disability. Or maybe you're working with a lead and they're trying to represent somebody else's interest. I am a proponent of just try it, because you'll look back at your early accessible or more accessible visualizations and see how you could even make it better in the future. And I also believe, and this is something that when I was a bank examiner, we really looked at spirit and intent. Did you try, or was it blatant disregard for the law? If you're trying and you have evidence of that, then it's more helpful than not. All right, so here I've got some resources. Oh, sorry, can you advance a couple of slides? I'm not going to cover off all of them, but I'm going to let you know how they are organized. So their first section is around understanding accessibility. I've got some great links in there, the 508 website, the Domino's website, or the Domino's lawsuit, which was really interesting. They were taken to court because their website wasn't accessible. And if we advance again, this is more understanding accessibility. I also provided a screenshot of contrast checker. I use TPGI, color contrast analyzer. It's really helpful because it not only shows you what the ratios are, which are outlined in WCAG or in some heuristics, but it shows you why. So I find that to be helpful. And that's in assessing accessibility, which is awesome. And then I've just got a couple of other resources, the DataViz Ally resource shortlist and guidance from Apple. So Microsoft, if you use Microsoft products for like Excel, Word, or if you're using Adobe, they have accessibility checkers built into their products. Apple doesn't. So, and neither does Tableau. So instead of a checklist, Apple provides guidance. And in the assessing accessibility, there's also a link to Chartability, which is one of my favorite resources for assessing. It is super comprehensive. You can go to the next slide. All right, so I know I zoomed through this very quickly. However, I want you to stay in touch. I want you to ask questions. If I don't know the answer, I'll get the answer. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn, X, even though I'm not really, I'm not on there a lot, or you can email me. But LinkedIn is the best way to get in touch with me. All right, and can you advance one more? All right, so here are some key takeaways. Be super focused on the user. Pour before you publish. The only 100% accessible dashboard is the one that you design for you. Document your design practice, or your design process, excuse me. And that's helpful in case you're asked. And then check for accessibility, and just try it best. So that's it for me. I can take like one, maybe two questions if there are some.
Thank you so much, Emily, first of all, and thank you for doing it from the airport and providing such great insights. Just so interesting to also have the audience as a perspective that we are building the visualizations for the audience, so it should be taken into account. Really great perspective. So please, Emily needs to run to catch her flight, and we can take two questions. I haven't seen any in the Q&A or in the chat.
Totally fine.
But they love your talk, Emily.
Yes. Well, I hope so. If you think of any later, just pop into my messages on LinkedIn and ask away.
Thank you so much again.
Thank you. Have a great chat, or have a great meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I will stop sharing here. Again, I think Emily shared.
Have a good flight, Emily. Have a good flight.
I think we will also share her material afterwards, right? We can ask her. So we will provide the link, I guess, via email.
Like always, we will send an email. I will
Exactly. With all the
embed me in social media and LinkedIn. You will see me everywhere with the recording and all the material.
Exactly. So with that, let's move on to our second speaker, Sophie. With that, the stage is yours. I think I stopped sharing my screen.
Yep,
So
I'll
yeah,
try sharing and let me know if you guys can see my screen. Should be coming up just about now. Does that look good?
not yet.
Okay. Let me try again. Do, 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 do.
I am so
Two.
happy because usually it's me who has problem to
Oh,
share screen.
and it's always like really embarrassing. It's because you have a million tabs open.
Yeah.
And
That's also my excuse usually.
where have
Take
they
your
got
time,
to?
Sophie.
I've got it open right here. Try now. Yes. Okay.
Good.
Present. Okay. So, hi everyone. Thank you for joining in. I'm based in the UK, so for me, it's a good evening to you. But wherever you're dialing in from, I hope you're having a good morning or afternoon or good night as well. So I'm going to talk about how I do this slightly strange thing called live data drawing. You might have seen me do one of these before. I've done a few of them for user groups, but if not, I'm going to go and explain what live data drawing is, why you might want to do it, and then I'm going to walk you through my process. I'm quite conscious of time, so I'm going to move quite quickly because I know we've got an hour for this presentation, and also I've got two small kids who will be getting picked up just about now, and then will be downstairs clamoring over their dinner. So I'll need to get down and make sure they don't cause too much of a ruckus. So on the screen you have my contact details. So if you do want to reach out to me afterwards, please do. I'm on LinkedIn. You can email me. I'm also going to share these again in a second. So let's start. So a little bit about me. I'm a information designer and a data community manager. I've been working in the data visualization space for over 10 years now, and I've worked for Tableau as part of the Tableau public team, and right now I'm the community and content manager at the Information Lab, a large Tableau, Ultrix, um, Power BI, Snowflake partner, and consultancy company here in the UK. But that's a bit boring. I mean, you can just go check me out on LinkedIn and find all that. What I think would be much more interesting would be to know something not many other people know about me. So I thought we could do a quick little visualization experiment right now. And if you want to know what I think my secret superpower is, can you drop a clapping hands emoji into the text box? If you want to know about what I wish people asked me that they never do ask me, please put a thumbs up into the text box and I will, thank you, see if we can draw some tallies. Okay, so I see one thumbs up, 2, 3, 4. I'll do countdown so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, clear winner is people what would like to know what I wish people would ask me, but they never do. So what I wish people would ask me that they never do is short hair easier than having long hair? I've had both long hair and short hair. I've had short hair for a great many years, and everyone assumes it's easier to have short hair. You can wash it very quickly, it dries very quickly, but you can't throw it back in a ponytail. So if I have a bad hair day, I have a bad hair day. There's no pulling it back up and making it look like that cool mum bun thing people do on the top of their heads that I'm very jealous of. So short hair, not as easy as you think it would be. And I have to get it cut really frequently. So that's my thing I wish people would ask me about, and they never do. If you'd like to drop something that you wish people would ask you about, but they never do, into the chat, I would love to hear something about you as well. So drop it into the chat if you'd like, and I'll read it afterwards. But hopefully that you could see was a quick example of how using some really basic illustration. That was just the screen drawing tool. And quantifying something made it much more engaging and much more fun. So that's the essence of live data drawing. So live data drawing is a way of visualizing information that makes it a lot more human, a lot more relatable, a whole bunch more fun, gloriously imperfect, and especially at a time when AI is becoming everywhere and it's just going to become more ubiquitous. Human, imperfect, real time, you can't catch it back up. Those things are going to become a lot more valuable. At least I believe they are. Another way I describe live data drawing is sketchnoting, but instead of writing down, capturing what people are saying, I'm capturing all the other quantifiable things around that. So the atmosphere, the vibe, things like how many are people using emojis? What emojis are they using? Are they clapping? Are they typing in lots of comments? What story structure is the speaker using? Are they going to, as a speaker, going through a lot of slides? Is it really high energy, or are they having a chilled vibe and taking you through it slowly? So I capture those kind of things instead of capturing what they're saying. So that's what live data drawing is. And I find that limitation of having to do it live gloriously freeing in like creative sense. The more limitations I find I have on something, the more creative I get with it, and the more it excites me. So why would you want any of this live data drawing? Well, apart from the fact that I think it's really fun to do, it is really engaging. The same way you might have a sketchnoter at an event like a user group like this, or at a big all hands team meeting, an in-person conference, a workshop. It's a lot more engaging. It injects fun, and it makes it heaps more memorable. You will remember those sketches. You probably remember that little example there with the clapping hand emojis that I just did. It makes your event stand out. Um, it creates this eye-catching content, really good to share on social, and people will share it afterwards. And then when people see the images, if they're reshared a while later, it's a memory trigger. Oh yeah, they'll say, "I remember that. That was really cool. That event. They talked about some really great things. Emily gave some really good tips about how to make a dashboard accessible." So it will help you remember, be a memory jogger. And lastly, it starts conversations. These live drawings and any sort of illustration using data is a great conversation starter. You could use them as data badges to help so people know when you're networking something about you because they can see it. It makes people feel more special, helps them feel seen, and helps them feel appreciated. So just as Annabelle Spruiked has her that she's looking for a job. I would love to help you. So if you would like to learn more about what I do, data drawing wise, how I use data and illustration and combine them together, in any way, please reach out. There's a link there. It has my email, where I am on social, some information about data drawing. And if you'd like to book a call with me, that'd be fantastic. So shameless self plug here. I'd love to help you. Please do reach out. Okay. So the process, how do I do this? Now, hint, it's all in the preparation. I'd say it's live, it's great, and it is live, but the only reason it works live is because I do a bunch of prep beforehand. Um, it's kind of like studying for an exam and then going to the exam, and you get that nervousness and that rush, and then it's over, and I find that a real thrill. So the process can be broken down as about 45% planning, 50% prep, and then about 5% actual drawing. So it's much more like a consultation process. I gather requirements from the client. So where is it going to be shared? What size? If it's on social, how big the image? Is it going to be printed out? Do they have brand colors? Do they have iconography they want me to use? I did one recently for Snowflake, and they not only had brand colors, they gave guidelines about how much each one of those brand colors should be used. So the predominant colors and the secondary colors. Um, Research the client's style. So I would like these drawings to kind of fit in with the look and the feel of the client's work so people can easily identify it with a particular client or a particular event. So I research what that looks like. I research how's it going to be presented? Is it online? Do you have a reaction emoji buttons, or do you have to put them into DMs, into messages? So I research, is it in person? Is it online? Is it hybrid? How's that going to work? I've had some huge hiccups where it's been a hybrid event, and I thought I would be able to see the screen, the slides that the speaker was presenting, but instead the camera was all just on the speaker. So I've had to scramble last minute and change what I was going to capture, because I couldn't actually capture anything about how many slides they were going through or the main colors or anything about the slides, because I just couldn't see it online. Um, and then I get all these ideas, I ideate, and I build a mood board, and then I pause. I take a big break. I find this is the best way if you're doing anything a bit creative, is to have these structured breaks where you do something else or you leave it a day or two, because you want all those ideas, the mood board you've put together, to recombine, to mingle, to marry, and so you can come up with a cool new idea in itself. Otherwise, you're just regurgitating the research you've just done. So the second bit is the prep. This is where I decide on what data I'm going to encode. I have my primary encodings, and then I have my backup pair in case everything goes wrong. Another one would be if I assumed that this event had, like Zoom events, the fly up emojis that bubble up. And if I was banking on that and it didn't have that feature and I didn't know beforehand, I'd have to pivot really quickly and see what else I could do. So I always have a backup set of encodings that work with the layout and design I've decided on. I lay the whole thing out. I create axes. I make a how to read key, really important, so people actually know how to read this. And I set up all my brushes. I use Procreate. So I've got one up here on my iPad mini. So I do them all in Procreate. And I set up my brushes. I have a color scheme, sorry, palettes. And then with my brushes, and this is a cool tip, I've got a thing pinned at the very top called live data drawing. And I have the brushes I'm going to use for that particular drawing in there. I have all the presets set, so I don't have to worry about the sizes changing. I've got them locked in, and any tweaks I've done to those brushes are locked there. And I know they're the brushes I'm using for the live drawing because I rename them to have an emoji of a bar chart in front of them. So I know no matter what happens, these brushes are for the live drawing. So I set all that up. I set all my layers up, and I get ready, and then I practice. I practice jumping between brushes, between colors, between layers. Once or twice, I've been a bit too ambitious with what I wanted to do, and I realized I just probably couldn't do it live. I couldn't jump. I've got all my shortcuts set up, and I was just fumbling it. So I've had to. So I do have to practice, and I have to sometimes tone what I'd like to do down a little bit so I actually know I can physically do it. Then I have another pause, and then it's go time. So the most important piece of kit I have apart from my iPad is a old school kitchen timer. So starts ticking away. I start this as soon as the speaker starts their talk. And so I know how long they've been speaking for, because nearly everything I do is based somehow around time. So I need to know, for lots of them, how long the talk's been going for, so I know when to put things in. And then it's draw, 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 and as soon as it's finished, done, and I can send it out. Okay, so going through these steps, the plan phase looks a little bit like this. On either end here, I've got some sketchy, flow charts. That's me pulling out elements. On the left-hand side is for a drawing I did for um, Tim Tim's Tableau Tim's YouTube channel, and the one on the far right is the one I recently did for Snowflake. And I use a system that Gabrielle Marit taught. She's taught it a few times, but last time she taught it was at a graphic hunters conference last year. And I just find it easier to write. I think of an idea. I have had a look at the material. I've done the research. What are they talking about? What does the company's brand look and feel look like? And then I begin to just not trying to limit myself. I just put down ideas. So I try and focus on things like textures, shapes, colors, and layouts. So, and I put arrows between them so I know what idea linked to what idea, so I can kind of follow it back up. And I build a tree of ideas And then I use that as a sort of a jumping off point to go then build a mood board. As you can see in the middle, there's a mood board and a color board, where I've thought about what textures, what look, what feel I want for a particular drawing. And then I go on Pinterest, I look through books, I take photos outside, whatever it is, and I bring them all together. I look at other data viz, other illustrators, and put them all together in a mood board so I can begin to pull out those elements and see how they might work. And if I'm not given a color palette, I'll also pull in some color palettes, and then I let it breathe. I sit down and I let it breathe. Usually I like do this a few days beforehand, and I give myself a day or two just to let it. The next bit I do is the prep phase. So you've got two versions of Tim here. The one on the furthest left with the white background. For this one, I was going to sketch Tim's outline for every year he was on YouTube, and the transparency of those lines from the faintest to fully not transparent was showing which years he made put out the most videos. So I needed his outline staggered across. So I made a axis in bright yellow. Nobody else is going to see that but me. And I needed color that was very different to all the other colors I was using so it could stand out. And then for this one, I duplicated the photo. So I do a setup. I put a layer which has my axes, and then whatever layouts and prompts and guidelines I'm going to need, I begin whacking all those in. And the one in the middle is the version just before I started working on it. And this has got the how to read key. There's a how to read key in the pink box on the furthest right. And it's got the look and feel of Tim's YouTube channel. He has very distinctive thumbnails, and you can also see the bright yellow keys over the top. Those are my guidelines for the two metrics I was going to track. What were they going to look like, and how do they lay out? And so this is, hopefully, I will play this. This is a time lapse of all of that to the prep stage. So this was the video of all of it condensed into 1 minute, and the prep took from minute, it took 40 something seconds. The drawing took 5 seconds, and then sort of final touches, making sure all the layers were on right, took another like few seconds. So nearly all of it is prep. So this is me prepping the background, getting all the text tags I'm going to need to drag in, filling in that key, doing my grid guidelines, moving all the bits around, and testing out what it would look like, and to make sure the colors worked, and then it's all ready to go. So I usually hide the key while I'm working because it's distracting, and I don't want to actually accidentally draw over the top of it. So I hide it, and then this is what the live viz looked like before I started talking to Tim to visualize what he was saying. So I've got my key, and everything's ready to go. And then the last phase is draw, 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 draw. So this video is a quick scrub through of the Data Plus, the Women on Snowflake user group I did last week. This one I was tracking for every minute, the speaker, Veronica, what she was doing in her talk, whether she was talking about a problem, like a challenge, the action she took to overcome it. Was she talking about the outcome, and was it a professional or a personal story? So I tracked that minute by minute for these snowflakes, drawing them in, and once the talk starts, I got to pay a lot of attention. So it actually isn't that dramatic to watch because I'm spending most of my time checking my timer and also listening or watching to what the speaker is doing. So the actual movements of my hand is quite small, and scrubbing through here sort of went fast and slow, and then filling up the last of these minutes. And the great thing is, as soon as I finish drawing, it's ready to share. So you will see this as well in here. I'm just changing all the colors there. That's what that palette's dropping down is. This one I was using the same brush the whole time, so I didn't need to jump between brush layers. But then I got it ready to share, so I could share it on the call with all the attendees. And just coming up to time. So if there are any questions, drop them in the chat. So again, that link is to my link tree. You can find me on LinkedIn or contact me via email. And if you have any questions, drop them into the chat, or Annabelle or Olivia or Jinwin, I'm sure you'll unmute yourself and tell me if there's anything I've missed.
Wow, thank you so much, first of all. Please, audience, take this chance to ask questions. I certainly have a few questions.
I know people always spend a little bit time typing in. So Olivia or Annabelle, if you have any questions,
Yeah.
feel free to drop in.
I mean, first of all, this is like, I have no words. It's when I saw the video, this is super inspiring. My first question would have been, where do you get your inspiration and your ideas from? Or put it differently, does the prep phase get easy the more drawings you do?
Yeah, the prep phase does get easier. Without really meaning to, I've done a few of these now, and I've got a bit of a style. I'm not sure if it's a style I want to continue doing because it's quite. I always include a picture of the speaker. I do that because I want people to know who the speaker is because it's quite an abstract thing. So I want something a little bit more concrete there, and then I'll draw on or around the picture of their face. So that bit's gone quite quick because it's like a shortcut. I know that's kind of what I'm going to do, but I'd like to branch out and try and do some more things, which would mean that prep phase takes a lot longer. So all up, it takes a few hours per person to prep. And if I'm doing multiple people, like there are multiple speakers at the same event, like a talk with multiple people, uh, it takes less prep time, obviously, to prep after I've made one. If the other speakers are having a similar look and feel, it's much quicker to do those. So it's sort of it's hours, not days, worth of prep. But I do need to have breaks in between. Otherwise, I can't think up really good ideas. And I'm sure just like everybody else, when you have your ideas is when your mind wanders and does something else. So you always have like brilliant ideas when like you are going for a walk or having a shower or loading the laundry or changing the bed sheets or whatever it is, and you're like, genius idea. And I find the best way to capture, okay, maybe not genius ideas, but like that's a spark of an idea. I have, because you have your phone on you all the time, I just put on a voice note and I just talk into my phone, and then I've captured that. And I've got a workflow to send those voice notes, get them transcribed, and then I can have them and read them later on, and then write down, because I can capture an idea, but I don't actually think through it well until I begin to write it down, which is why you saw those weird flow charts.
Let's see. We even have one question. Who was the designer you mentioned? Gabrielle Mauritz or?
Oops, sorry, put myself in mute. Gabrielle Marie, I will grab her. She does. I'll put her website into the chat box right now.
Perfect.
There we go. It's in the chat box. She's a brilliant information designer who uses a sort of a collage style quite a lot. So I also get quite inspired by her look, but I think that collage style with sort of photography can really help with very abstract concepts to help ground it down. So um, yeah, that's sort of one of the reasons I use it. But I would like to branch out and try a few different things. If anybody is game to let me come along and try drawing one of theirs in a slightly crazy style.
Cool. I don't see any other question.
I have a question, Sophie.
Yeah.
I have a question. When are you doing your workshop?
If anybody would like one, yeah, for sure. I'll think of doing one. No, yeah, I've no plans, no plans. If people would like to have me to do a proper
Please,
webinar
please,
and going
please
through
do.
this, yep, for sure. I will think about that. Yeah, but harass me on LinkedIn. I'd like, if a couple of people would like this, I'll think about putting together a webinar or something where everyone can show up with their iPads and we plan to do and draw a 3-minute talk at the end of it or something like that.
I also have one last question, and then I'm all conscious of the time. Have you ever used other tools than your iPad, and like have you tried other tools to do the live drawings?
Yeah, I have. So I use Procreate. I'll split this answer into two bits. So yes, I have. I've used other bits of software on my iPad, and I've also used pen and paper,
Mm.
um, and other random things. So I use Procreate because it's got lots of brushes, um, and I use it for other things. So it's a tool I know. I've also used Adobe Fresco, which makes PNGs, just the same as if you use Tableau a lot and then you jump to Power BI and back. It, they're similar enough that you sometimes get yourself confused about the actual workflow of particular things. Um, but each tool has its own advantages and disadvantages. I've hand drawn these before. I've done a few crazy things. I made badges live, or people came in and told me, filled in a form, and then I colored in with a big like badge stamping machine, which was really good fun to make these little pins, little pin badges. Learned a lot about that. The particular type of ink I used bled, so then we were doing like shake it like a Polaroid picture to try and dry these things off fast to put them under the press. It is easiest because what I'm doing requires a lot of prep. It I find it easiest to do it digitally because if I'm just doing it by hand, I have to put the axes up and then erase them off in pencil, which um, is harder. It's easier just to unselect a layer. I guess I could probably do it with a tracing paper layer underneath if I had a light box, but
Sophie, we have a question in LinkedIn live from Anastasia Stefanska. I think that you know her because she was like from the Snowflake, right?
yeah.
What was the funniest things happening to you during this session?
Ah, had some real mess ups. One was I was assuming I would be able to see a speaker's slides, and I had everything set up to look at the slides, and then it was a hybrid session, and the cameraman in the room was brilliant, but they just focused on the speaker and not the slides at all. So I was like, ah, I'm manically trying to change it. I did another session with a scientific group, and I was planning to measure claps because everyone was in person except me. And I was like, great, this will be, atmospheres, big like conference, people will be clapping. No one clapped. And like, I obviously did not in a bad way. I just like did not like, yeah, I totally misunderstood the vibe of a semi-scientific conference, and that a lot of clapping was just not the done thing. So I was going to do this cool sort of background which showed the claps, and then it was like people clapped a tiny bit at the start and then a tiny bit at the end, and there was like nothing in the middle. And so it was just, I thought people would be like, yeah, reactions, claps. No, it was like, then dead silence in the very end. I was like, well, that was a bit underwhelming. So I sort of had to pivot quite quickly, and which is why I always have a backup set of metrics and what else could I look at. I've also done another one where I assumed I would have comments turned on, and there were no comments. And the first one I did fully live, Annabelle, was the analytics tug last year. And I was measuring reactions and comments, which was great. I could track those, but I was also tracking slides, how many slides the users went through. And Andy Cockgreave and uh, Tristan just went like slide, and it's like crap. It's like line for every slide, and I was just like, oh, this is just. I just was like, my mind would be like a nice, lined, nice lines, and this was like, I'm pretty sure I missed a few of them, but at least you got the general impression across that they liked their slides. Maybe there weren't that many slides, but they at least they had lots of uh, animations put on them, so you couldn't really tell if they changed slides or if they just animated it and it had changed. So those were some good mess ups. Yeah, I've yet to have something like the battery die halfway through, so that would be my other panic.
On slide, it could have been worse because do you know Matt Francis? is very famous to have
Yeah.
like a 300 slide deck.
Yeah, I
Which is
know.
very
That's why I try and research the people beforehand. If Matt Francis had been presenting it, I would have definitely not chosen slides.
All right. So here we are. We will also not clap. We will clap virtually for you.
Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for joining, and thank you Annabelle and Olivia and Jingwen for hosting me and Emily. It's been really fun. Hope everyone has a lovely evening.
Thank you. Do you want Olivia to share your screen one last time? I think that
Yes.
we have like one additional slide before
Yeah.
saying goodbye to everyone. Anyway, I will send like the recording, everything on social media and by email. Can you? Yeah, that's a thanks. Please, you can follow us on social media, contact us on LinkedIn. If you would like to speak, please contact us. We always have happy to have some speaker.
Very
Here's
important.
exactly.
We need speakers.
And we have an additional slide about there is data lead her that is coming up in some days, 5 days to be exactly. And I can copy paste the the URL on the chat, or I will also send it to you. Thank you very much. I wish you a wonderful day. And I love that when Olivia does that, she has the entire screen like coming to life. Thank you very much for joining. See you next time.